Is NU about to become real sussy? Yeah. Well, based on these projected tier shifts, yo, it may be happening. Look at that. Amoonguss could move from RU to NU. I would be absolutely stunned by that happening, just because Amoonguss has not been NU since Gen 5. And we're talking, once it got Regenerator, it pretty much went immediately to RU. Maybe not immediately, it was around for a good amount of time, but anyhow, we're going to talk about the projected tiers today, so if you been enjoying the content, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We are almost very close, very close. A couple more varies. We're almost there to 9K. I know we can do it. I just need a little bit of help from you, the viewer at home. Leave a like, comment down below. Hey man, you excited about Amoonguss in NU? Because I'm gonna let you know why you should be. I'm gonna try to talk about like all the shifts as best I can, but obviously I don't really play RU like that, so yeah, don't anticipate me saying anything all that helpful about RU. Now, big shift, there are a lot of things that are gonna be huge. So the new relevant ones up here even. Pecharunt can move to UU to OU. This isn't, like, huge necessarily for UU itself. Pecharunt isn't, like, at the forefront of the metagame. But the reason it could happen is, from what I've seen, there are actually a pretty good amount of hyper-offense teams you see in OU. They use Pecharunt as a pivot. So they use that parting shot set that Pecharunt has. And it's pretty much just a means of saying, hey, I've got a really good Iron Valiant check. Because Pecharunt, you know, obscenely bulky on the physical side. Valiant obviously goes special pretty frequently too, but what, you're using Stablis Psychic? Or Psyshock? Ooh, wow, yawned there, I just woke up. But regardless of what you got, it's not gonna be doing a million to Petra unless it's like Psychic, or Shadow Ball, I guess. But a lot of time, obviously, you'd rather be using your Moonblasts because, well, you're Iron Valiant, you're trying to break, and if you're physical, you're just not ever beating Pecharunt. So, since Speed Booster Valiant is really huge for teams to have as counterplay to HO, Pecharunt's a really good fit, and yeah, Sporting Sweeper's also good. UU, it's like, Pecharunt's good, it's just not like super common. So, I kind of view it as like a wash for UU. It's like, it takes away a building option. I'm just kind of like, I don't really know if this mon is all that good to begin with. So, Now, the next change, Tinkaton could move from UU to OU, especially when you consider Deoxys-Speed could be dropping. Now, you got a shift that would be pretty huge. Now, I know a lot of UU players will hear me say that and go, but Rabia, I think Tinkaton is bad. It's a momentum sap. And in tier where Volt Turn is really good. First off, shut the hell up. Second off, you're wrong. I think Tinkaton's incredible in UU, and I think the haters need to be silenced. So, Tinkaton and Cobalion both are naturally really important, and I do think, by the way, people nowadays don't think Tink is so bad. It sees way too much usage for that to be a, like, justifiable opinion. But Tink and Koba both are really responsible for checking the dark types that are super prevalent in UU. Obviously, Greninja's one that neither of them are an amazing check to. Tink's at least a little bit better because your special bulk isn't so terrible, and as long as you're not switching into Surf too frequently, I think you could take like one from Specs Gren and kind of still be chilling. Plus, you know, you could be Terra Water. But otherwise, you're checking Weavile, you're checking Big Hoopa, and you're checking Low Kicks. Imagine taking Tink out of the equation, because keep in mind, Weavile just got suspect tested. It did stay, but imagine losing a Tink. That's going to make a lot of people change their minds, right? There's other counterplay, but you're going to have people being like, oh, that's not good. Imagine Hoopa in the tier without Tink. Because Hoopa's already pretty broken, in my opinion at least. I do think Hoopa's probably the most ban-worthy mon in the format. Imagine it in the tier without Tink. Because now, what's your counterplay to Hoopa? You've got defensively, it's like, what? Koba, and if you're special, then Koba doesn't check you. Mandibuzz, I guess, and if you're Thunderbolt, you aren't checked by Mandibuzz at all. You really don't have any defensive counterplay at that point that's all too reliable. You've got offensive counterplay. You could always limit Hoopa through faster Pokemon if you've got your own Scarfer, in addition to, say, first impression low kicks. But it's just... Hoopa's already a mon with so few checks. Imagine losing one of the few. And then you've also got, like, dragons like Hydrapple and Latios that would become super opened up if Tink is gone, and then what? The main steal is... I mean, I guess saying the main steal implies Tink is the main steal to begin with, but... I mean, what? If you're facing a Koba team, you don't care about those if you're one of those mons. You don't care if you're facing Heatran a ton. Latios would care more, but every Latios has a move pretty much to hit Tran, so at the end of the day, it's like, good change, but not an impossible one for Latios to manage anyway, right? Or good check, I should say. So those would be pretty huge for Tinkaton leaving, you know, huge beneficiaries, I should say, of Tinkaton leaving. But imagine Deoxys-Speed drops at the same time. You trying to tell me you're checking a Deoxys-Speed with Cobalion? In this climate? No, you're not. Like, look, Deoxys-Speed is not some absurdly strong Pokemon that just you're gonna see specs thrown on it and it's gonna wall break everything. Mon is base 80 special attack. That is not good in the context of Gen 9. But, hey, what if a nasty plot? Keep in mind, that mon can afford a decent amount of HP invest because of how fast it already is. You don't have to pump that speed all the way to Wumbo. You can go for HP, you can find more chance to actually find the boosting, and when you're at +2, okay, well now checking the mon becomes a lot harder. You still got, like, you know, your traditional offensive counterplay, but that pool of Pokemon is pinched a lot more tightly when it's something like Deoxys-Speed compared to Hoopa Unbound. Like, we're talking like an Adamant Hoopa Unbound with Choice Scarf, because that is a set people really like. Like, I want to say there are at least some Pokemon that can just normally outrun it. Not many. Oh, I'd have to check the tier list. I'll be real, I can't name any off the dome. But, like, keep in mind, that's like let me remember, Hoopa would be 259 times 1.5 is like what? 389 or something if it's Adamant. There's at least gonna be other Scarfers that are like just normally really easy to outspeed. Or used to outspeed. You know, now that I think about it, I don't think there's actually unboosted mons relevant in UU, but you get the idea, right? Scarf Hoopa a lot easier to outspeed than something like Deoxys-Speed if it just chooses to, like, it's gonna outspeed everything unboosted really, really easily, no matter what. And Scarfers, you're not gonna have as many that can contest Deoxys-Speed. Like, if I won it with Deoxys-Speed, outrunning Choice Scarf Okidogi is not a problem. Same with Choice Scarf Hoopa. These cannot be used as counterplay. I'm sorry. I will just EV to be faster, and you will flop as a check. And it's gonna be really funny. You're gonna be really embarrassed, and you're gonna press X. And then defensively, it's like, okay, well, Tink is gone now, potentially. I mean, Heatran would be a problem, but, I mean, you do have coverage. So it's not an impossible matchup to win. I mean, I think the big thing that would limit Deoxys-Speed would still be not coverage, natural special attack being kind of low and over-reliance on boosting. But goddamn, man. Losing one of the better defensive answers immediately as it drops would be really criminal. And we do get some rises as well, potentially, into UU. So, I mean, this wouldn't be like... This is obviously just stuff adjusting from RU. This wouldn't be the only stuff happens. So, Hawlucha and Poltegeist. Lucha, I don't really understand, because I don't think this mon is good still. But Poltegeist, we've seen a lot more of that lately. Not even, like, on terrain teams. We've just seen Poltegeist as a sweeper. There's a bulky Shell Smash set that's gotten a little bit more usage. So instead of weak armor, you go Cursed Body. And I have seen Poltegeist just leverage its ability and bulk versus a few attackers before. Like, I'm trying to remember one. I remember we even did a video with a Poltegeist in it. And I think I remember it getting a lot of run because of Cursed Body. I'm trying to remember, what was the mon? T-Tar. Watched a Poltegeist damn near just beat T-Tar because it kept getting Cursed Body on the knockoff. And then it would just Strength Sap the Tar, and Tar couldn't break Polty. So that's actually like genuinely pretty solid right now. You don't even need the terrain anymore. You don't need to go for, you know, the weak armor boosts to get stored power to go stronger. Leave that to Armor Rouge or whatever, right? It is like actually a really solid mod. So I think that is a pretty obvious rise. Revavroom coming up. We've seen a lot more hyper offense now in you use Revavroom. Particularly, it'll do like Temper Flare plus high horsepower, so you've got coverage for every steel imaginable. I'm trying to remember, there's like... Temper Flare hits something other than steels. I just can't remember off the top of my head why it runs Temper Flare as well. But you'll see those two in a stab attack with Shift Gear. I do feel like this would be the change that RU could really use. Partly because this mod's kind of existed at the top of RU for the entire gen. Pretty much Revavroom has been the premier sweeper in RU since this generation began. And it's never gotten banned. I'm not even convinced it's gotten suspect tested. I don't remember. Maybe once? It may have been tested. I just don't think it got banned. So that would be a shakeup to HO. And obviously people talk about how RU is the hyper offense tier. I don't think that's the case anymore from what I've seen in SCL. But I'd also like to point out that SCL is not really indicative of the metagame. Like, these team tournaments are just not, because it's a best of one setting. You always gotta take like a blend of the best of ones and then like maybe best of three settings too. Because what's good in BO1 isn't as premier in BO3. Because in a best of one, maybe you'll just try and bring something that's consistent to try and not lose on the spot. Because if I were to bring a matchup fish and then get smacked in one game, well, that's it. If it's a team tournament, I lose my slot. But if it's best of three, there's a little bit more leverage. So I think that's why you see more balance brought, even when it's not necessarily good. All that to say, yeah, Revavroom could rise up. And I think, yeah, both Revavroom and Poltegeist, just this kind of showcases two of the better setup sweepers right now in UU. Both of them just very nice. Revavroom also nice that in a tier with Weavile now, you don't give a shit about Ice Shard. Lucha, I ain't got no clue, bro. Polar Bear in Arlington, Texas. And in Mew, this is also just for hyper offense. Mew is increasingly the best lead for the teams. You see less and less Sandy Shocks. I high-key think Shocks will fall eventually to Ari, by the way. Very high-key. Some drops to RU. I don't play RU, so I don't have a lot to say about any of this. I feel like Necrozma's just been bouncing between NUBL and RU. But I do think both Metagross and Rhyperior would be pretty big for RU to get. Mamoswine, I'm gonna be honest. There's like some level of shock to see it drop. Okay, it hasn't dropped yet, but be projected to drop. Just given Skarmory hasn't actually been that defining presence people perhaps thought it could be. And I guess this has to do more with Rotom Wash rising to the top of UU. Rotom Wash is everywhere right now. But like, you have coverage for that. You can even do some dummy Trailblaze sets, and again, you have coverage. Then you don't even have to use Freeze Dry. So I'm a little surprised to see Mamoswine slated to potentially drop out of UU, but I guess I do understand it a little bit. You got Ice type coverage or competition as well with Weave around, and Weavile is a lot better. It's a lot faster, and Swords Dance basically just means you're stronger too. So you don't even really have that as an argument for Mamo. I don't know, just a little bit surprising to me. I guess this would be saying that I expected better out of Mamoswine, and it's let me down. Metagross, of course, this mod's not really been particularly amazing in UU at any point this gen. It's kind of hung around in spite of that, but I do think it probably is just time to drop out of the tier. And RU doesn't really have a ton of steals right now. Not like your traditional ones, at least. Like Hisui Gudra, I believe, and Jirachi are the two highest rated in RU right now. So I mean, Metagross is at least in theory a really nice change. I don't know how much it does for the tier, but I can't fathom it would be broken, because I mean, it's fine in Gen 7. I'm just gonna assume it's fine in Gen 9 too. I know this logic doesn't actually make sense, because Comfey, for example, is NU in Gen 7 and it's RUBL now. But I don't think Metagross is that same level of beneficiary of terastallizing. So there's that. I'd argue it preferred Z moves as a mechanic, but I digress. Amoonguss would give him another steal, and I think that's always good. Again, I mean, the tier is both hip. The tier is Hippowdon Slowbro to check it. That mon ain't gonna be broken. It's got Talon too. They'll be chill. Maybe that inspires them to drop Noivern back to NU. I don't know, man. And Rhyperior as well. Since Zapdos rose up to OU, there's basically been no reason to use Rhyperior anymore in UU. It's not like the mon isn't viable, it's just nowhere near is justifiable. Where Rhyperior was at one point just great for shutting down Zapdos if it, you know, wasn't U-turn. Now it's like, what am I using this for? So, obviously, RU would be happy to get Rhyperior. I mean, one, it's a rocker that beats up on Talon and Noivern pretty well, so I'm sure that would be appreciated. But it's also just a different ground type. And, you know, getting more ground types, that's always positive. And like I said, no clue about Necrozma Suicune. I ain't got no clue. They're just setup mons, dude. I'm sure it's some random hyper offense flavor of the month. Literally. Keep in mind, these tier shifts are all projected based on just October. So, literally, it may just be flavor of the month right here. I don't know. Now, what I can't talk about is some NU-related changes. Sussy Baka Amoonguss. Sussy Wussy Mushroom. He could be dropping, and that would be pretty good. Obviously, Regenerator Pokemon are always going to be useful in a tier like NU, where I think NU is where you start seeing the break point between generically good defensive Pokemon and in where like all the offensive bullshit starts filtering down that isn't good enough to be used in a higher tier. I kind of feel like we're that spot where you really see it hit the most. Something like Amoonguss would be incredible glue, and is it's a good example of something that could help restore balance to a point of like usefulness. Because Amoonguss, you gotta compare it probably to Vileplume. I guess you could compare it to Glowbro too, because they're Regenerator poisons. But I'll do the Vileplume comp just because of typing. And so, I mean, that's like still really easy to talk about justifying one or the other on teams. One of the big things is Amoonguss is actually bulkier. So, when you're talking like a Boots Amoonguss, Flygon almost never two-shots you with EQ. It has to high roll you twice. Vileplume, it's like a 50-50. So that's a pretty good example of showcasing the difference in bulk there, just assuming max defense, max HP on each. And if, you know, Regenerator is obviously a lot better than effect support. Yeah, Amoonguss won't be able to pressure something like Mienshao with status every time it switches in, but I can still scout out whatever move you want to lock into. And I feel like that's most important though versus something like Flygon, where yeah, if that mon wants to EQ and they're banded, yeah, I'll take a ton, but I can Regenerator on out. And that's also a difference between it and Glowbro. Glowbro, I do feel like a big reason it's not as good as it could be is because it doesn't check Flygon. So Amoonguss, you know, again, it's not perfect, but the fact that it at least can do some of these other things, particularly when looking at the top breakers, just scouting them out and then pivoting to whatever your appropriate counterplay is, I think's good. It won't be... Also, Water Tauros being not a hard counter because Zen Headbutt's a thing, but a really hard check. That's also just really, really phenomenal. It also feeds the Fire Tauros propaganda team, so there you go. As I'm saying, though, it's not like this mod's without counterplay. Obviously, it's going to be a good example of Mon that is exploited by Terra, although since it has Foul Play and, like, Stun Spore, I feel like something like Flygon, for example, that maybe you would cite as a Pokemon that'll Terra and just beat Amoonguss. I actually don't think it will as easily. It's like Terra Steel. I mean, yeah, I could just Foul Play you still. Foul Play Amoonguss is really good. It'll just still beat you down. If you're Terra like Fairy, well, I have Sludge Bomb. If you're Terra Ghost, I did say Foul Play. So I do also find that to be pretty beneficial for Amoonguss. So like Vileplume's a lot more exploitable with Terra. Steel just shuts it down if you're sub DD especially, although that set's kind of dead. But if you're something like a Bronzong, for example, if you're Terra Ghost with Throat Chop, that can get dicey. It's why you're seeing a lot more Gyro Ball Bronzong lately. It's literally just so you could still kind of do something to Gone. I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential for Amoonguss. You'll still do something like Overquill being a pretty annoying mon, but again, I'll Stun Spore that and at least be kind of happy. Competition will exist still from things like Glober or Plume. I just think you're a lot better than Plume, so it won't really matter. You know? It's like, is it competition when you're that much better? I don't know. I don't really know. I think you are actually the competition coming to Vileplume. It's not that you don't face competition from it faces competition from you. So, all that to say, Among Us time is almost upon us. Will you be there? Because I will. All of this assumes that Among Us actually drops to us, but yes, it would be a really good mon to get. Gastro could rise up from PU. This would probably kill the tier again. We already obliterated PU once. Why not do it again by taking Gastro and then dropping all of these? Yeah, Rain's really good. Gastro is a good check to Rain. Not an amazing answer, but at the very least you wall Kilowattrel and you... I don't want to say you wall Basculegion, because that guy actually can kind of fuck with you. Even Kilo can, by the way. Like, if there's Specs, Hurricane, and you're not fully specially defensive, it's not like you just beat it. But you're a good Kilo answer, you're a good Legion answer too. That's at least enough to gain in new use, plus you get spikes. And Tornadus, I believe this is entirely due to Rain. You don't really see a lot of Torn otherwise, although I do think it is good for things other than Rain setting. But yes, this would be entirely just for its spot on Rain, I believe. Drops. Dragalge. This mon doesn't get used really at all anymore, although I do think that's just because people are haters. I think the main thing is just Inu is offense focused right now, and Dragalge is a slow breaker. So it's like, maybe it has a role on offense as like a pivot. I could see that. But I believe Dragalge flourishes more in slower metas, where it has, one, more opportunities to just throw off Dracos without worrying about ceding a ton of momentum the next turn when you have the special attack drop. But two, when you've got just more passive mons you could exploit with like other sets. Like Sub, for example. I feel like Sub Dragalge has a lot of potential right now in NU. It's just the issue is, again, you're gonna have no matchup into the offense teams. So it's pretty tough. Galvantula could drop, which I'm a little surprised by, because Araquanid is not better than Galvantula. Just don't believe that for a second. I think Galv's a lot better. I guess there's an argument to be made that because of Scale Shot Flygon, you may prefer Arac right now, since it doesn't just kind of sit there and give boosts. But I still like Galv a lot. And then Torterra could drop. Yeah. I think Tort's just a lot more terastallizing reliant than it used to be. It's kind of also tough to deal with how slow it is. Like, the fact it's not like Dread. Dread can Shell Smash and outspeed the tier. Tort really can't. Like, I'm still a lot slower than Choice Scarf Flygon or Choice Scarf Mid Shell. I'm still very vulnerable to, say, Banded Flygon. If I tear up, well, my most common Terra type's Ghost, so then I'm weak to Sucker Punch from Croak. That's not too good. Just a lot of unfortunate things for Tort. And then some PU changes. I'm not going to pretend to have the most in-depth knowledge of PU despite playing it for for SCL this week. You give me a little bit of time to learn the tier. I know enough to comment on some of this. Bruxish. This one, I'm going to be honest, I ain't got a lot to say other than it's an offensive water type in a tier that just lost Water Tauros. So there is a void to fill, and Bruxish is... Remember when we first got Water Tauros in Inu? And now Bruxish still saw a little use, because it's like, well, there's some stuff it can do Water Tauros can't do. You know, Flip Turn is a niche, which means Scarf's probably still better. You know, like, there was still some cope to keep Bruxish going. Well, now though, they lost Water Tauros, and this mon happens to check Fire Tauros pretty decently. So, yeah, I think it makes sense. Yuxi, I won't pretend to have a lot to say there. Cramorant, you could read the PU viability ranking thread. I believe there was actually a post made within the past month talking about Cram and why it's actually kind of decent. Lycanroc, from what I've seen, the most common HO lead. And in Rhydon, they are literally talking about moving this mon from C rank to, like, A rank. But also, literally, look at the PU team builder and look at Rhydon. It is... that doesn't tell you the full story always, I know. But it does give you a pretty good glimpse into why it's getting that consideration. And then drops from PU. This mon, Hitmontop, fucking sucks. And in Rotom, yeah, you suck too. Hope all y'all enjoy. Not for real though. I hope y'all enjoyed the little projected tier shifts coverage. Let me know, again, down below, what are you thinking about from this? What are you most excited for as a potential change? You excited for Amoonguss and NU? You excited to see maybe Big Mamo drop to RU? I don't want to say for the first time ever, because I think it's dropped before. It just ended up rising or getting banned. I want to say even like last gen or Gen 7 it was banned from RU, but I don't recall. Let me know down below though. I'll see y'all in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.